mosque fell, people were still marching.
This is the entrance to the city of Basra. Here we are in Habila, a village that has not had any food distribution since June. When the families have finished looking at the names that are posted on those boards, they come here. This is now a memorial to the victims of the Srebrenica massacre. Where in the Quran does it justify the killing of innocents? Christiana Manpour, CNN, with elements of the Galilee division in Israel. I'm Christiana Manpour in Iran, in Amsterdam, in Jerusalem, Washington, D.C. So come with me around the world. We're very interested to see what's going on here.
Welcome, Christiane, and many thanks for being part of the ECFR's program marking the 25th anniversary of the Dayton Peace Agreement. It is a big honor to have you.
Well, it's a big pleasure for me. Bosnia has been the defining moment of my life, and this is an important anniversary.
Indeed, I was a teenager back then, and my parents spent the entire siege in Sarajevo, so we're very thankful for your moral clarity and courageous reporting. I want to start our conversation by reflecting on the role you played in influencing the decision makers in Washington and European capitals to intervene. And I'd like to ask you to react to the quote by President Clinton, who in 2011 said the following about you: "I like her very much, but the uncharted hell she gave me in the first 2 years while I was president about not marching the entire American army in Sarajevo was a gift. There are sometimes relatively few when you can say that a single journalist had such a decisive impact on the lives of people and the set of political decisions that followed." Could you react to that? What do you think 25 years later?
Well, I find it very moving, to be honest, for the president at the time to reflect like that and to be so generous about my work and the work of many, many of my colleagues. It was my generation's Vietnam, and it was in the era of never again. We had been raised on the clear moral imperative that a genocide is intolerable, unacceptable, violates every norm that had then been laid down after the Second World War. And this was the first massacre based on ethnicity, based on religion, based on, race to an extent in Europe after World War II. So that's what motivated us, all of us. And that also, being in Bosnia, in Sarajevo, in other parts of Bosnia for all the years of the war, and seeing with our own eyes what was going on day in and day out, and the targeted killing of civilians, children, women, old men, non-combatants. Very, very important to remember that. Obviously, there was fighting between, military types as well, but the most of the fighting was targeted against non-combatants with a clear aim, and that was to clear and seize and hold territory by the Bosnian Serbs and their masters in Serbia. And when we figured out what was going on in front of our eyes, we called it like it was. To be fair to President Clinton, I was not calling on him to march the entire US military into Bosnia. I thought maybe a few well-placed airstrikes would stop tigers and bullies, which the Bosnian Serbs were. And in fact, that was shown to be the case after they decided to, finally, after the massacre at Srebrenica, after the following massacre in the Sarajevo market, NATO, led by the United States, did go in with only Air Force and cleared some important Bosnian Serb military emplacements. And that stopped the war within a very short period of time. And that enabled President Clinton to launch the important diplomacy to end the war. And of course, now we are marking 25 years of the Dayton Peace Accords.
Yes, thank you. And that perfectly brings us to the present. And you're one of the rare stars in journalism who did not forget about Bosnia. We saw you in the introductory video reporting from Srebrenica on the 20th anniversary of the genocide. And you covered the rulings of the ICTY tribunal in The Hague. But yet, for all of us who care and worry about the revisionist trends in the region, the aggressive the aggressive denial of war crimes and genocide, the glorification of war criminals by the same politicians who are suppressing democracy and local media freedoms, we'd like to see more journalists of your profile involved. So how can we generate more interest and international coverage for these issues, which are a continuation of conflict but lack the drama of war?
Well, look, you're asking, it's a big ask because we were all there for the entire time of the war and for several years after the US-led NATO force that was the peacekeeping force in Bosnia. And we were all there for many, many years. But you're right, you know, other things happen in the world. And when suddenly we see peace has come, we think our job is elsewhere to try and highlight what else is going on. And I would submit, and I think perhaps even the US administration would agree, the Clinton administration at the time, that because of what we did in Bosnia, we made it impossible for the international community to get away with the same kind of disaster in Kosovo. So what happened in Kosovo was when peace negotiations went nowhere with Slobodan Milosevic, the international community, you know, really led by the United States, led by President Clinton, I think also Tony Blair, if I'm not mistaken. In any event, it was at that time in 1998, yes, 99, where they led an intervention, including airstrikes, that prevented a genocide in Kosovo. So I have to say that we did our jobs, but you're absolutely right. And that, as you know better than I do, and I'm just going to read it from here, you know, the UN Security Council in April delivered a report lamenting the solidification since Dayton of the ethnocentric politics that were there before the war and which have been cemented in what you might want to call a Cold War ever since. And that, plus what they call a pandemic of essential dysfunctionality politically and corruption, have been very, very difficult in order to push Bosnia forward. I have just seen a new film. I've seen a screener. It's called Quo Vadis Ida, and it's about it's by a pair of Bosnian filmmakers, Jasmila Zbanic and her husband Damir. And it tells the story of a couple of days, the key days during the fall of Srebrenica and the massacre by General Mladic and his forces. And honestly, I can tell you, when I first saw it, I felt like I was there again. I felt the panic, I felt the anger, I felt the fury, I felt the shame, and I felt the terrible, terrible moral cowardice that allowed that to happen at the end of the 20th century. And so I do regret very deeply that, yes, the Dayton Peace Accords ended the war and it saved lives and it stopped people being killed. And that was really important. But it also did solidify the ethnic boundaries. And as many people have said, it rewarded Bosnian Serbs with their own rump statelet, which they're still trying to, you know, sometimes they threaten to secede. So I would hope that this next period of years, in the next 25 years, you know, that can be changed, that people need to learn to live together. Bosnia was meant to be a place where all ethnicities were able to live together, have their own rights, equal rights, and be protected, all of them. It wasn't meant to be solidifying, you know, a group of people who went to war. And I think you'll find that your young people, whether they're Croat, Serb, or Muslim in Bosnia, don't want this anymore. The new generation do not want to be imprisoned by the stubbornness of their fathers and their grandfathers' generation.
Yes, and exactly what I wanted to talk to you about the new generation and the local agents of change in post-conflict societies, but in particularly Bosnia. We have invited representatives of multi-ethnic political parties and civil society actors who are carving out small islands of change in Bosnia. And we want to talk to them about their potential, but also limits of what they can achieve in this situation. How do you see their role? And especially, how do you see the role of women in this regard?
I think you had elections, right, in Bosnia last month, which showed very clearly what young people are thinking. And in certain strongholds, whether it was Banja Luka or Sarajevo, the nationalist grip was loosened. And I think that is, probably the beginning of a forward trend. You never can predict, but wherever you look these days, wherever it might be, whether it's elections in Africa, whether it's in Belarus, whether it's in the Middle East, wherever it might be, not to mention in the United States of America, where a massive and unprecedented turnout decided to come out and confront what was an increasingly authoritarian and autocratic takeover of the democratic process in the United States. And I think young people were the movers and shakers, and women. Can I just say women? Women are change agents. They were change agents over Srebrenica. They never allowed the world to forget what happened in Srebrenica. They kept the world's conscience, in their grip where it should be over what happened in Srebrenica, and that there must never be that kind of brutality and genocide tolerated ever again. But young people, I think they are the solutions to the future, and it's the only way forward. It's the only way forward.
Thank you so much for this conversation, Christian. I hope you will find some time to follow our conference next week. As I told you, we've invited an impressive young, a group of impressive young politicians, civil society actors, and activists. And hopefully one day they can come to your program and tell you about their efforts to move things forward in Bosnia.
Hey, let's hope. I'm always open. I really do share my platform with people who really want to make a difference and want to make change for the good in this world. So bring it on. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
and welcome back. Our next speaker played a crucial role in ending the war in Bosnia. Without him, there would have been no peace talks in Dayton and no Dayton peace agreement. Importantly, President Clinton made the case to US Congress for the deployment of a large number of US troops in Bosnia as part of NATO's implementation force. And in the Western Balkans, he is of course remembered for intervening to stop another humanitarian catastrophe unfolding in Kosovo. On behalf of the European Council on Foreign Relations, I am honored to welcome the 42nd President of the United States, Bill Clinton. Once again, welcome, President Clinton. You have the floor.
Thank you very much, and thanks for giving me the chance to be with all of you today and commemorating the 25th anniversary of the signing of the Dayton Agreement and recommitting to the future of Bosnia and Herzegovina and to our transatlantic partnerships. Maruga and everyone at the European Council on Foreign Relations should be committed for organizing these conferences and to acknowledge, as we all should, the fact that other people really care, including the distinguished participants over the last 2 days. I have always believed that what we accomplished with the NATO campaign and then the hard bargaining at Dayton, led on the American side by the late Richard Holbrooke, was some of the most important work of my presidency. It was a triumph of multilateralism and our first Cold War test of the transatlantic partnership as we sought to redefine them for a new era and to build a Europe that for the very first time was united, whole, democratic, secure, and free. I'm very glad that the President-elect of the United States, Joe Biden, has recommitted to that vision. We all know the road to Dayton was tragic. I'm still so very sorry that it took as long as it did to unify all Bosnia's friends to use military force, and that it took the awful genocide at Srebrenica to stir all the NATO members to action. But it happened. And 25 years later, I'm still grateful that the peace we negotiated at Dayton is held. The nightmare endured by the people of Bosnia and Herzegovina has never returned. The credit for that achievement, of course, belongs to all the people of all backgrounds who've made a choice every single day that they want their children and grandchildren to grow up outside the shadow of the bloodshed and hatred they knew. But as we all know, that is not enough. There is more that has to be done. Too many deep internal tensions remain, and outside forces are acting to delegitimize Bosnia and Herzegovina as a sovereign, multi-ethnic state, destined to integrate more fully into Europe and the international community. There is still far too little economic opportunity, especially for young people. The last decade has seen a steady return of hardline nationalism, political nepotism, disrespect for the rule of law, dangerous rhetoric among politicians, inflaming old tensions to score short-term political gains. And perhaps most relevant for today's discussion, we know that all too often the Federation's constituent parts have become an excuse to keep anything from happening. In his book about how the Dayton Agreement came about, Dick Holbrooke wrote that success, quote, requires flexibility on tactics, but a constant vision for the ultimate goal. That was essential to forging peace 25 years ago. It also, in no small measure, defines the progress or lack of progress we've seen in building a functioning central government in the years since. Especially in recent years in Bosnian politics, it seems there is neither flexibility on tactics nor a constant vision for the ultimate goal. Those of us who care about Bosnia and its future, whether in the United States or in Europe, should recommit ourselves to being active partners in keeping the process moving forward and trying to untangle these Gordian knots. We know progress is possible within the frameworks of the Dayton Constitution, especially when the U.S. and Europe are fully engaged in supporting Bosnia and Herzegovina. In 1996, the central government couldn't raise taxes. There were 3 separate armies, 3 customs services, 3 intelligence services, no single border service, in effect, no unified state to speak of. Now there is a single army, tax power for the central government, unified border protection, and a federal judiciary. These are important achievements that should be celebrated on this day. Moreover, the people of Bosnia outside politics have shown they are ready to look past the conflicts of the 1990s and work together for a better future for themselves and their children. Polling shows large majorities of people are proud to be Bosnian citizens, including in the Republika Srpska. There's an entire post-war generation who are innovative, creative, ambitious, hardworking, and most importantly, focused on the future, as everyone saw in the documentary that played earlier in the conference. And there's a vibrant and talented diaspora community, including many here in the United States, who want to support and be part of that future. But the danger remains that continuing political instability, constant paralysis, and irresponsible rhetoric will eventually deepen divisions among everyday people. At the time the Dayton Accords were reached, we knew and said that it represented just a beginning, not an end. Reconciliation is not a finite process. It's something we must begin again and again, day after day, year after year. And as President Izetbegovic said, even the most imperfect peace is better than the continuation of war. I hope we can use this anniversary, this moment of shared memory, as an opportunity to make a new beginning on all sides. To come back with a commitment to real democracy with minority rights, individual rights, the rule of law, the absence of violence. In every post-conflict area in which I've ever worked, as well as in American politics, I've seen time after time that it takes courageous leadership to break stalemates and achieve real change. It takes a leap of faith, often with the knowledge that one's own political fortunes may fall in the short term. But that is what real leadership often requires, to give the chance for ordinary people to live better lives, even if it means not holding on to your own power just for power's sake. Compromise has to once again become an honorable thing, not a dirty word. And all the friends of Bosnia and Herzegovina must show that the benefits of cooperation, reform, and focusing on governing are high, including eventual membership in NATO and the EU, and in the nearer term, a serious effort to help improve the economic prospects of the people of Bosnia and Herzegovina. I personally remain hopeful, in part because in just over a month, my country will have a new president who's been a friend of Bosnia and Herzegovina for many years. Just yesterday, as I said at the beginning of my remarks, he issued a statement reaffirming his own commitment to your future. President-elect Biden has also made clear that he will strengthen our transatlantic partnerships and our shared values of cooperation, peace, and democracy, and work to repair the strains of the last 4 years with our allies. The long-term success of Bosnia and the entire Balkan region is crucial to the success of Europe, the United States, and the larger world. We have to turn the page to a new era of partnership and engagement. To me, the most important lesson of the last 25 years is the simple acknowledgement that a society works best when everyone is empowered with a chance to build their own lives, when everyone's voice is heard, and when cooperation triumphs over conflict. based on the understanding that our differences do matter, but our common humanity matters more. Today, I'm thinking about all the time that your previous speaker, Christiana Monfort, spent beating on me to get involved in Bosnia. She was a heroine, and I'm glad to see that she's still recognized for what she did. We can all be grateful that a whole generation has grown up free from the horrors of war. The people of Bosnia and Herzegovina should hold that in their hearts as they confront the challenges ahead. But we should also stand behind them with a renewed sense of determination to build a future of progress, prosperity, and inclusion, and a frank acknowledgement that the deal we made at Dejton then to end the war, stop the killing, give the people a chance to build a future, should no longer be used to block the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, President Clinton. We very, very much appreciate your time. And this is the first time that ECFR has hosted an American president, and we sincerely appreciate it and are honored. And we do hope that leaders, both in Bosnia and Herzegovina, as well as in the international community, heed your call. So thank you. And now I would like to say that we will have a break until 5:45 p.m. Berlin time, when we will be joined with several wonderful panelists for a session hosted by Majda Ruge, this conference organizer, and it will be about Bosnia and Herzegovina as a transatlantic project. So it will be a great continuation of some of the topics that President Clinton has just brought up. We look forward to seeing you again at 5:45 p.m. Once again, thank you to President Clinton, and thank you to you for joining us.